My name is Keegan McGuire with Bereave. I'm here with Colleen, who has courageously raised her hand and offered to tell her story of loss while employed to help demonstrate the impact that this has on everyday people. So, Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Keegan, for reaching out. I found you guys through a post about loss. It was very interesting to me to discover there was a company that saw that there is this very weird aura around loss and what that looks like for everybody and how you navigate it in the workforce. And people
Right.
don't want to talk about it because they don't want to offend, they don't want to hurt feelings, they don't know what's too much. So I think what you guys are doing is incredible. And I've said that much since I
I,
found you all. I think it's wonderful and beautiful.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, there's a fine line. This is something that's oddly taboo to talk about, even though
Mhm.
we will literally all go through it. So, using this as a platform to kind of open up that conversation for other people to show that it is okay to talk about.
Mhm.
So, again, appreciate you coming on. Will you start with kind of a little bit about your journey and kind of why that led you to, being interested in what Breeve's doing and wanted you to come on today?
Sure. So I am a mom. I've got two little ones, and I've been in the hospitality industry truly my entire life from when I was 17 till now. And I'm pushing 40 in a couple years. And, through that journey, obviously, I've now started growing a family. And unfortunately, miscarriage happens a lot. And it's just really unspoken. And I am a statistic of miscarriage. For me, though, my situation was very interesting. So I had my daughter, found out that I had a pretty serious health scare after my daughter was born, and I had to end up having a single salpingo oophorectomy, which means they removed half of my reproductive organs. And so I never thought getting pregnant again truly was going to happen. Well, fast forward 2 years later, joke was on me, and we found out we were expecting. And at the time, I was helping a friend run their restaurant, their pub in our local community.
Hmm.
And I had just told them I was expecting, I think maybe the day or two prior. And the reason I felt comfortable sharing it with them was I just wanted to be mindful of what I could and couldn't do. I didn't want to push myself to be working late hours. I didn't want to be
Right.
caught doing anything that might hurt me.
Right.
It's almost like I should have knocked on wood, but
Hmm.
there's a lot of what ifs of like, what if I
Sure.
hadn't said anything? And for those that don't know, they really recommend you don't say anything until you're 12 weeks pregnant because there is such a high risk of miscarrying. Well, I was at that 8, 9 week moment because I was getting ready to go hear the heartbeat about 4 days later. So I went to work. I felt off. And I don't know if anyone who's listening experienced a miscarriage, but there is something that almost it like hits you like a truck. You know your body, whether you've experienced a pregnancy prior or not. Something felt off to me. Women, I think, understand their bodies pretty well. And I was standing behind the bar and I just kept saying no, like no, 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 no. And I was holding my tummy, and all of the things in my mind started racing and I froze. I actually didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go at that moment. I ran to the only place I knew, which was the restroom. Sure enough, I realized I'm miscarrying. I like walk out of there and I looked at Liz, who is my chef and the owner of the company. And she just like knew. She immediately knew what was happening. And she looked at her husband, Spencer, who was a friend of mine as well. And she's like, she needs to go home.
Good.
And I walked home because I lived down the street, and I walked in the door and looked at my husband, and I just like lost it. I was hysterically crying. It wouldn't stop. And this is like what's hard, people, is that when you suffer a miscarriage, it's so out of your control that there's all these fears running through your mind of I don't know where to go, I don't know who to call, I don't know, you don't know what to do. And
Right.
in that moment, also everything that I had like thought about this little future baby was like out, like all of those things flashed before your eyes. My daughter was going to be a big sister. I just told my parents. I then was like, well, I have to tell my mom and dad now. And it's like, it's such a catastrophic moment, no matter what stage of pregnancy you're in.
Hmm.
Stillbirth is also very prevalent. And that's another type of, they call it a miscarriage loss sometimes when you get to that point, or if there is no heartbeat after a certain place, but you have to deliver. Like there's all these things and these layers of loss for women. And it's hard because when you work at certain companies, you don't feel comfortable saying you're pregnant because of this fear, right? So I, again, was super fortunate to work for someone that was a friend of mine, and they knew what was wrong. And they actually left bread pudding at my door that
No.
night because it was my favorite thing. And there's just sometimes there's like no words, right? Like, but there's
Yeah.
little extra things you can do as a business owner or as a just as a person
Right.
to say, I may not understand what you're going through, but I want you to know that we see you and we understand that this is a very personal loss of life.
Yep.
But sometimes I think that gets lost on people that this is a major loss for a lot of families,
Right.
especially if you're trying to have one for so long or you
Right.
don't think you can have one.
Right.
It's a very whiplash moment. One moment you're pregnant, and then like literally moments later you're not.
Yeah.
And it's awful. It's really sad, and I think it's okay to say that it's sad.
It is. And that's kind of, and I'm glad you're able to talk about this and bring almost a sense of normalcy to talking about it, because you even said it just there, like, you know, it's not okay to talk about for some reason, but you're doing like, this is important and this is good, for lack of a better word. That you explained your situation, you know, as a very tough situation. Will you kind of just go into, I guess, details about how your life changed at that moment, your everyday life, and then kind of moving forward from that?
It immediately changed me.
Right.
Within the next, unfortunately, for those that don't understand, this is what's so interesting about what you guys offer is for those that miscarry, it doesn't end that day. You have to continue to have follow-up appointments, and they check your blood levels, they do sonograms. So although I knew that it was over, I still had to go and have these appointments.
Yeah.
And it was like, took the wind out of me every day that I had to do it for the next 5 days. And I knew what I was going into. I already knew that this was what they were going to tell me, but this is protocol and this is what they have to do. Because
Right.
also for the safety of the mother, there is a loss that you're going through that they have to make sure that you're going to be okay. And some women actually have to be hospitalized. Like it truly is a very traumatic event. So however, the next day, I decided to found my company, Hospitality Bites Media. I don't know what it was, or I was angry, or I don't know. It was something in me was like, I'm not going to let this loss define me forever. I want to do something with it, and I want to build a business around sharing stories in the hospitality sector, which I was already doing through the podcast, but I wanted to do more. I believed in myself. I felt like this might have been a wake-up call of like, life is fleeting. It happens so fast.
Yeah.
No matter what type of loss it is, whether it's a miscarriage or your significant other or your parent, a loss wakes you up.
Yeah.
What's hard though is returning to normal. And I couldn't get myself to normal in the sense of I didn't feel happy for a long time. I was really sad. I was really angry. I was lucky again to work for someone that told me to take the time I needed. Like I was afraid to go back to work. And that's the other thing, especially with my situation. And I think a lot of women, you're afraid to go back to the place where it happened because you're reliving that trauma.
Yeah.
And this is not the employer's fault or the company or the people around you. It's just you feel something. And it takes a very long time to process that. What happened was I ended up getting pregnant several weeks later with our now son. But for me, I lived in fear the entire pregnancy. I held my stomach the entire time, like tighter than I ever did for my daughter. I was afraid to move. I was afraid to I couldn't function and enjoy the pregnancy. It was also a more difficult pregnancy for other reasons, but I realized I was living with fear the entire time.
Yeah.
With being pregnant with him.
Can't even imagine. And I don't have much to say back to that because I can't imagine. I can't put myself in your shoes. very happy that you had your son, and that
A
was
rainbow baby.
that is an amazing part of this story. Um, wow, that's great. Can you talk a little bit about the cook? You said, after you knew that you had your miscarriage, your boss, the head cook, you said that she understood immediately. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the impact that had
Yeah.
right then and there, and then kind of in the future as well?
She is a mother, and she has 3 children.
Hmm.
I don't know if it was that because she was a friend or that she was a mom or a woman in general, she could see like the life come out of me. For anyone that loses someone, you lose a part of yourself, right? And that also at that time, and she could see that that was gone for me. Like I just was not there,
Yeah.
and she'd also worked really hard on herself, being an owner and being the chef and being a leader. You have to offer things to your people that makes them realize that this is a human experience also. Like we see you as people. And because of Liz is why I am creating a documentary about women's health in the industry, because of her kindness, because I know that not everybody is lucky to work for a leader or a owner that understands the human side of life,
Yeah.
and that we all experience traumatic things, whether or not we want to admit it. We will all, like you said, we will all go through something that's going to change you. And she understands that. And she inspires me to want to be a great leader. I want to make the industry a safer place. So should a woman experience what I'm going through, that other people know how to address that. How do you talk about something that's so awful? And
Yeah.
it's okay. Like, again, it's okay to say these words like that. It's awful. It's heartbreaking. It's sadness. There are no words. But if you're a leader or a business owner, you can do something about it. You
Hmm.
do have the ability to make someone feel less sad or alleviate some of that grief that they're going through.
That's a very good way to put it. And so she had a personal, she has kids,
Mm-hmm.
and she could um, kind of feel that pain in a way.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to business leaders who haven't experienced a close loss or wouldn't quite understand the impact that this has? What would you say to them to realize the severity of
Mm-hmm.
this, you know, not just miscarriage, but just loss in general? Well, let's start with miscarriage, of course.
So I think it's important for anyone that's in a leadership type role. Having the skills to do your job is wonderful, and that you've got the education and you have all these, hard skills, but like soft skills of
Yeah.
knowing how to truly like let your guard down sometimes. Like I think that we have this fear of going by the HR book of like, well, we can't have emotions, we can't get into your personal
Right.
life.
Right.
If you lead with this fear of afraid of offending, because again, I understand that, but with something like the loss of a miscarriage, even in your handbooks, before you hire someone, say we have an understanding or the needs that we will help meet the needs that you are going to go through should something happen of this nature. Not even just for the woman that's experienced pregnancy, but for their partner, because that is also forgotten of. They need time to grieve watching their significant other go through something like that. And my
Right.
husband took 2 days off. That was what they offered him.
Of
But for me, like it was like a week of sadness and crying and doctor's appointments,
course.
and
Yeah.
then trying to be a mom to my other, to my child. And I think that's what's so what I think should be instilled in leaders and people that own companies is before you even open the doors, you have protocols put in place for something like this.
Right.
Even if you don't understand it, just showing that you care a little bit is okay. Like it's okay to have a human part of your HR policies. That's why it's called human resources, but
Thank
that's
you.
for another topic, I
Well,
guess.
yeah, we'll save that for a whole nother day.
I know. It's so
Um,
true though.
Right. So just the act of not even just being a human, right? Understanding that we aren't just employees, we are humans,
Mm-hmm.
both at home and at work. So it's hard to just turn off, these feelings and grief at the door and come back to
Mm-hmm.
work. So that is really great that you got to experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I use these words lightly, really great, but it is really great the response that you got, and how supportive it's clearly turned out to be.
And I know how fortunate I am because I have family members who have experienced it where they went and sat in their car until they figured out what to do because they didn't know who to talk to at their place of work. And and to do so and to have to go through something so personal and traumatic, like
Right.
in like the parking lot because you're afraid to go to your boss, is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I don't think people should have to experience that. And I do think that there's a fear of this is a very personal thing when it comes to miscarriage, like reproductive anything. However, for a lot of women that find out they're pregnant, they're already dreaming of what this child is going to be the moment they find out they are. So it's not really the physical grief that you're going through, it's that mental grief too. And that is an okay part to say, hey, I don't know exactly what you're feeling, but I can only
Mm.
imagine how hard this is for you that you are losing the future that you had in your mind. I think
Right.
those words are okay to say. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like it goes a long way for anybody.
Well, I said it earlier, and I'm glad that that was the right thing to say, because I
Mm-hmm.
truly don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you went through. I know, based on how you're telling it and just being a human, that it is very hard and continues to be hard, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't know. But there is a sense of empathy in me, being in this business and kind of trying to set the standard of it
Right.
that allows me to understand it. So, with all that being said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did your company's response support influence your loyalty, in your intentions to stay?
I think for me personally, it one because we were friends outside of it. We weren't like great friends. We are great friends now.
Yeah.
It just reinstilled why they are good at their job and why their business is successful is because even though I was actually there to help them, I was helping them when they were kind of in a bit of their own crisis with her navigating a postpartum depression. That's why I came in there. It, but it really did validate, and I think to their staff, they care so much about this is their livelihood. This is how they care for their families. And they want everyone to be treated the same way that they would hope they'd be treated, right? Because we're all trying to pay our bills, we're all trying to take care of our families.
Right.
And if this is what they have to do, like one thing that Liz has done because of her own experience is that she offers paid time off to women that are pregnant at her company. And they are a small business, and not everyone gets paid when you're after you have a baby for maternity leave. You can file
Good.
disability and you can try
Right.
to get benefits,
Right.
but not every small company can offer paid time off. And so she realized that's what they need. So they also feel like they don't have to rush back to work right after that.
Right. And Liz probably gets very loyal,
Mm-hmm.
caring employees back that care about the
Right.
business. And that's kind of what we're out here trying to prove,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you treat your employees like people, they
Yep.
will stay loyal, they will work hard for your company and do everything they can. Do you agree with that assessment?
I I believe in that so much that the only way you keep good people is by being a good person. You don't have to be, a tough, to get people to do what you want them to do. Working alongside your people, being in the thick of it, conversating, knowing their names, like that is one thing that I've learned through the hospitality industry is when someone knew my name that was a higher up, I was like, wow, they're actually taking the time because they care. But I've worked for companies who didn't, they could have cared less that I was some
Right.
server in their establishment. They never took the time to learn my name. They just was like, hey, can you help me?
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that from a few restaurant people, operators I worked for, that they said, knowing everyone that works for you from like the dishwasher to the porter to the front of house, back of house is so important because they're investing their time to be in your business. You at least can invest your time to learn their name.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the name part, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
seems so basic. And then when you
Right.
get down to actual grief and
Mm-hmm.
loss and depression, and it's at that point, the people that don't know my name, are they going to support me? Or
Right.
are the people that know my family, that know not just my name, my family's name, and
Mm-hmm.
actually care, who do we assume is going to show up when the
Right.
tough times hit? That's just me, though.
I believe, though, so many people have two working parents in their home now, right? Because they
Yeah,
can't afford to be home and not have a job.
right.
And when I think operators realize that these people are away from their children or from their families or someone, maybe they're the primary caregiver for their parents, that they're sacrificing a lot to be there. And yes, it's a paycheck, but we live in a world now where everything is expensive. Everything costs time and money.
Hmm.
And these little things of just offering some grace to people, or that they're sacrificing a lot to be there, is important. And I think that falls on some people that are very successful, that they forget like maybe where they started, of sacrificing a lot of hours, a lot of time away from family just for bare minimum.
To get by,
Mm-hmm.
the least we can do is extend a helping hand,
Right.
supporting hand, an understanding hand when they need it most.
Yep.
I appreciate that and respect that. If you had a message to all CEOs about pregnancy loss, what would it be?
It is not a 1 day process. It is a very emotional wave of emotions. There is um, physical loss that you're going through that is embarrassing. And I know that's hard for people to hear, but like you don't want to get out of bed because you want to stay close to your bathroom, or you want, because you're afraid of getting sick, whatever it looks like. You want to be close to what makes you feel safe. And sometimes returning to work is not the safest place for someone because it can be a very triggering event depending on where or when it happened. I would be very mindful of the mental health that that person's going through. Again, if it could be their partner that's there's seven others went through it, checking in on them, like do they need more time so they can be there to care for maybe their other children or care for the household. Because what it does to a woman is it really just takes you down from like the head to your toes. And it is so confusing. There's a lot of questions. There's navigating the loss of life and the physical life and the mental burden, but it's also having to get over and moving forward, knowing that that part's now ended, and addressing the world, especially for those that are further along in their pregnancy. Like your body has changed drastically. And the last thing you want is someone commenting, which happens, and I know it firsthand, when are you due again? And
Mm-hmm.
having to say, like, oh, I'm no longer having a baby. It's very, very traumatic. It's really scary to enter back into the workforce, I think, after, because of something of that so hard, like not to be harmful. No one's trying to hurt your feelings. No one is the wiser, but it happens. And I believe when you open a business, or if you're, reviewing your policies or your services or offerings to your employees, approaching the pregnancy part, that should an employee become pregnant, no matter where you are, feel comfortable enough that should something happen, that there is a policy of that you get X amount of time off. And we say bereavement policy, and most people get 2 days. I think it's 2 or 3 days as average. It really needs to be something as significant, like should they have gone full term? Like what would you have done? Maybe not like 12 weeks, but allowing them the physical time they need, or let them take it on a rolling basis of like, you get a week off, but say you come back and it's still not the right time. Like there's no questions asked. You still
Right.
get X amount of time. Um, my husband's company, for instance, his paternity leave was on a rolling basis. So he didn't have to take it all at once. He was allowed to take it in stages, which really helped our family because I was able to have coverage as needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's a really great idea. It's like, maybe you do get help 1 week so he can go to work. And it wasn't, no one asked him otherwise of why he needed to do it that way.
Good.
I just review what you offer. I
Yeah.
know it sounds like simple and like, why don't I do it anyways? I think people are afraid to talk about it. And it's okay to be afraid, but it happens every day. And it's at a very high rate that people are unaware of because they don't say anything because they're so afraid and they're so
Yep.
ashamed. I do believe deep down, like, most people are good people. And if we can just humanize this side of loss that's so unspoken, you're gonna help your employees. Like, you have no idea how much you could change a woman's life by just being kind about something this sensitive.
Just being kind, being
Yeah.
understanding and kind, and getting ahead of it, being in front of it. Hey, this is available. We
Right.
have this. If you go through this, it's obviously a very personal situation. A lot of people don't like bringing it up, but for that reason, having it, known up front that, hey, this is what we believe in, we understand, that goes a long way.
And even one thing that I discovered is that there's a lot of postpartum specialists out there now that also discuss pregnancy loss. And not everything is covered by your insurance, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have certain services. I have noticed that companies are offering postpartum mental health care in part of their packages.
Good. Okay.
Is something that I didn't know it existed until I needed it really bad.
Yeah.
That there was services out there for you. But if you even talk to like companies or other, maybe niche things, how can you offer that to someone? Like, here, even if it's like, here's a website that you can go to talk to someone, and you put it in black and white. You don't know unless it's there, right?
Right. And that's a big part of, like, we don't need to get into bereave, but a big thing that we have focused on is the idea of, an employee is able to tell the platform about their loss, and it doesn't even make it to the HR. It doesn't even make it to the manager. They don't necessarily know unless they want to share the details. But there's a very personal part of this, and we're doing our best to, help those people as well. And if you had one message to the women who have had or will have pregnancy loss, what would that be?
It is okay to feel all those feelings. I definitely think that there is fear of being angry because, anger breeds resentment, and you start to resent people, and you resent maybe your significant other, you resent the place that you work at. Like, let it all happen, like, let it out, because all you're going to do is like just let your body heal by releasing those feelings. That is the biggest thing I've learned. Like, I had to forgive myself at some point. I had to forgive being angry. I had to forgive the sadness, because I like lost part of who I was in those moments. And I think that led into why I was so afraid when my son was born. And I really, unfortunately he had other things going on too. So I lived with a lot of fear for a long time, and I didn't forgive myself. I was very angry with myself. And I think forgiving yourself for something that was completely out of your control is the most important thing. Find people that you can talk to. It doesn't have to be your significant other, but it could be a support group. There are people out there that help navigate these really uncomfortable, tough, confusing times like grief. And it is grief, and grief has many stages, and it's not linear. It was real. It did happen to you. Just because there was no, like, as I said, physical loss of like holding something or someone that you love, that's a part of you that's gone. And that's totally normal to feel all of the emotions. Be kind to yourself if you can. Let those things hit you in the waves as they do. But again, yeah, truly forgiving yourself, feeling all of the emotions, and trying to find the light at some point, is really important too. It does get brighter. I always talk about, even like in the darkness, there's a little crack of light. Find that crack somewhere, and try to let it guide you to wherever you need to go.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful. I really appreciate this. And thank you again. This was very brave. You speak very well on this, and let's let this demonstrate how big of a deal this is, and how big of a deal it needs to be taken in the workplace and by just everyday people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's support each other, and it starts with conversations like this. So I really appreciate this, and thank
Thank you for the opportunity to share my story,
you.
because I do believe that you only touch one person. That's one more person doesn't feel alone.
Yep. Well, we're gonna get this out to the people. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Let me try out one more time.
You're fine.
You're good at talking about this, and again,
I've been practicing. I mean, total transparency. I've had to pitch my story to people to get the
yeah,
funding for the documentary.
yeah.
It's not
Well,
like you don't have to. You can keep this in. Talking about it is also really cathartic for me, because it also validates my feelings that I suffered a loss. Because there is also the stigma of, well, you never held your child, so why are you mourning that loss, right? I mean, it's a very real thing that a lot of women feel. Like, you never got to hold your child, so why are you so sad? It's the vision and the hope that you had that you're mourning.
yeah,
And also guilt that you're holding on to. Like, maybe if I had just stayed in bed a little bit longer, maybe I had taken prenatal vitamins early, and because I've had to try to tell my story so people and believe in why this project is so important to me, I have to be vulnerable, and I have to feel confident in what I'm doing and what I'm saying, so other people can maybe feel it a little bit. Like, I want people to understand it's okay that you don't understand it, but I just want you to feel maybe the human part of what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's easier for me to navigate this conversation, because I've had to practice.
Well, that you're great at it, and I'm
Thank
glad that we're doing this.
you.
Okay.
I'm very grateful. So
Well, this is working. Okay, let's. I have a few more, and then we'll wrap up.
sure.